movie Parasite is really good. It won the Best Film Award and was the first non-English film to do so, if I'm correct. And definitely rightfully so. Obviously, this video is going to have heavy spoilers, so now's your chance to stop if you don't want to watch it. I've now seen the movie multiple times, with my most recent time watching it being just a few days ago. And I almost forgot how good it was. It has a kind of innovation that I really don't see enough in American films nowadays. And from the soundtrack to the cinematography, it's all very good. And the fact that Bong Joon-ho made the entire house, or had the entire Park family house made as a set so that it could be exactly as he wanted it to be, that just shows the dedication and passion that went into it that I just don't think is present in a lot of American movies. And another thing that I really liked about it is the way it does class commentary. Now, Bong Joon-ho is someone who's made a lot of class commentaries, and Snowpiercer and Parasite, it's one of his things. But it does it in a way, and all his movies do it in a way, that I really like, where it feels more like it's telling a story with a commentary underneath. And obviously that's how it should be. I mean, that's pretty simple. But I feel like a lot of movies nowadays, instead, if they're going for any kind of commentary, they go for a commentary, make a commentary, and then tell a story underneath that. And it's much more obvious. I feel like a lot of movies that make commentaries, you can't watch them without really seeing what commentary it's trying to make, what point it's trying to make. And with Parasite, it's very clear, but you also just get invested in the story. The story stands alone, even though it does make a class commentary, with the main focus being on the lengths that people will take in order to get out of poverty, as well as just relationship between different socioeconomic classes. It also, just like his other movies, does blend the line where it doesn't go for a very black and white approach, which I just think is very well done. It shows the intricacies and takes into account just the complexity of everything, while still making a very good commentary on class. And I think it works very well in the American market, because from my understanding, South Korean culture and American culture are very similar. So really, what I'm trying to get at, if you want to do a class commentary, study Parasite. I'm no expert on filmmaking, so I'm not going to be able to tell you everything about it. I'm really just a fan, but it's definitely a good case study as far as doing commentaries, and all of his filmography is. I don't really understand why on streaming services it's classified as a horror. It's definitely not a horror. It is tense in some moments, especially on the first time watching it. A lot of the third act was very tense, from the moment the old housekeeper comes back until really the very end, or I guess the climax. It's all very tense, but definitely not a horror. Maybe more of a thriller, even though I really think it's just in a genre of its own. You can't really classify it. I really like the reoccurring imagery of it. That's something that happens in movies that nowadays I really notice, which is phrases or imagery that's repeated. Obviously, I'm guessing a lot of people who've seen that noticed the idea of levels and stairs, and also crossing a line, which is mentioned multiple times very clearly. It can be little callbacks to previous moments, but it also ties into the story really well. Another movie that I mentioned in my previous video that does it very well is The Place Beyond the Pines. I could make a whole video on that movie. I really like it, which has a lot of recurring imagery, a lot of recurring phrases, stuff like that. I also really like the ending of Parasite. Even though it is really not a good ending at all, it's really unsettling, it's unpleasant, I thought it was very well done. After the whole climax, where Mr. Park dies, the man in the basement dies, and the sister dies, when you realize that the dad went down into the basement, it's almost very fitting. He is now in a similar position as the man in the basement before, as if he leaves the basement, people will get to him. He's in a position where he really has no room to go anywhere, and he's just retreated to hiding in a basement, and there's really no escape for him. Even though Kevin mentions that he wants to make a lot of money and buy the house and they'd be able to save him that way, from the last shot you really see that that's not really realistic. It ties in well with the commentary that the movie is trying to make about class, about socioeconomic status, about the ability to move up in class, and also ties together the story really well. I think it's a great example of when an unpleasant ending can be used very well. Oftentimes I find some movies try to put in happy endings in the end when it's not really fitting. The movie was not a happy movie. It did not really need a happy ending. and I think a happy ending actually would have been tonally inconsistent and not been nearly as good. Although, I think if you are an optimist, you can believe that he does make money and does buy the house. But the last shot to me tells me that that's all just his fantasy. He's now living with only his mom. They have no job again. They're in legal trouble. He's probably never gonna go to college. So making money, unfortunately for him, like he says he wants to, would be very, very difficult, especially the amount of money it would take to be able to buy that house. It's just a very fitting ending, and even though it left me feeling kind of like uncomfortable, I think that was what it was intended to do. That a lot of the movie is uncomfortable, at least once the sub basement is introduced. It's all very uncomfortable, and that's a good thing. But I don't know. What do you guys think of Parasite? I know it's probably not a very trending movie right now because it was released a few years ago, but I just watched it again, so I figured I'd make this video. I think it's really good. But I'm out.